Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get going with some interesting stories from our speakers. Our first is Hans Sicat, handsome fella who's been back. He went up through school in Philippines and then was able to go to the U.S. to University of Pennsylvania, as I recall. Worked with Citibank for many years, first in New York, then in Hong Kong. In a roundabout way, ended up back in Philippines running the Swiss Barney setting up the Swiss Barney organization here and running that for a number of years. And then ended up, it's a story that I couldn't tell the whole thing, but first working a little bit in a way for the Philippine Stock Exchange, and then gradually becoming the CEO of the Philippine Stock Exchange. So that has been about a 3 or 4 year project for him now, and it's made a tremendous transformation. I know people, if you talk to people in the financial industries, they will tell you that a tremendous transformation has taken place in many ways, and many of the things that he's implemented are very important for the financial markets overall and the representation that they have, people in the outside world have about Philippines and investors here. But one, you see articles regularly in the newspapers. One of them that I've seen recently is this 10% float rule, I think they call it. And in the financial industry, if you're a big company, well, some companies that are closely held, they only want to have a small bit of float, shares that they don't own or control through people who are friends of theirs, right? And the reason is because it's alleged that it's easier to, maybe manipulate your share price. If your profits are down, well, you can pull back some shares and keep the price even. Whereas if you have 10% in the open market, it's much, much more difficult. Now, Hans and his group had to face very entrenched and very powerful people who, liked things the way it was and probably had very good reasons for keeping it that way. But many of these implementations that he's put in, very controversial, very necessary, and very difficult to do. So I'll let, been quite a story for Hans Sicat, and I'm sure he wouldn't take credit, and it would be unreasonable to take credit for the Philippine Stock Exchange being one of the top performers in the world, but it's clear that most in the financial services industry would say that it would not have happened without Hans Sicat and his group. So please, welcome Hans Sicat, the CEO of the Philippine Stock Exchange. Come on up.
Good morning, everybody. It's good to see everyone here. I guess they're trying to figure out whether my slides will come up or not. But before we do that, I'd like to thank Richard and Rebecca, actually, for inviting me to speak today. It's one of those interesting discussions, because when they first asked me to talk about something outside of the usual topic, I'm quite, of course, well-versed in what's happening in the financial markets, probably very comfortable talking about some policy issues, but certainly not, I guess, I would argue, qualified to talk about an inspirational message about or tips for secrets for success. So in fact, I feel greatly or very thankful that I was invited, that I'm picked to do something like this, but also I'd say very humbled as well. And it took me quite a bit of time to figure out what exactly I should talk about today. And in fact, I was struggling for the last few days until about maybe 2 or 3 nights ago. And I said that so that I don't appear and don't sound very presumptuous, I'll just talk about a couple of stories, call it Hans's Common Sense Tips, and maybe it'll resonate with yourselves. So the format that I picked out is that I listed out a few items, about 7 things. And because I was also not sure with what I was saying, I also did a bit of research to make sure that for every tip that I would put out there, I was hoping that somebody who's more prominent than me, a popular person, some philosopher, some leader, hopefully we could find a quote to back up what I was saying. And in fact, that's exactly what we're going to try and do. So hopefully there's some confirmation and not rejection of what themes I'm trying to put up. So what I'm going to do over the next few minutes is really just talk about my so-called tips and just relay a few anecdotes, talk about my own story, and hopefully you agree with a few of them. You might reject a few of them as well, but maybe you'll find it interesting if anything else. So here we go. Okay, tip number 1. Hard work trumps talent. And fortunately, I found something from Vince Lombardi. Vince Lombardi, for those of you who know, is actually a very famous football coach in America. And he's actually the guy who's credited with saying, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. But that's not what he says here. He says, the only place success comes before work is in the dictionary. And that's quite an interesting thought, because while most people talk about hard work and what you need to do to get somewhere, I think there are a lot of stories around there wherein some people may be lucky, but I think for the most part, people actually do work to get where they are. And it reminds me of what I was put through as a young investment banker. For those of you who know the type of program that Wall Street requires of many of its new trainees, as a young analyst, you're basically put through school. You have to pass the courses, otherwise you're out of a job. And once you're done with your coursework and you pass it, you're actually rotated through a number of departments. Well, as luck would have it, I was actually sent off to work on the trading floor. And my job at that time, as my boss said, is to make sure that there's actually a 7:30 a.m. market briefing. And I was in charge, little did I know, of writing the bullet points for him to talk about the market briefing. So that made me extremely nervous. And then he said, outside of the market briefing points, what you need to do is that everything the rest of the team gives you throughout the day, you have to work on. Well, what that meant was that I was basically on the trading floor from 6:30 a.m. trying to put the bullet points together to make sure that my boss had something to say by the 7:30 discussion. And of course, that meant that from the previous evening, monitoring the markets, I was probably usually up till about midnight trying to check what was happening. And in between, one of the funniest stories I remember is that on my first day, my boss also said, you also need to answer the phone, and if some of us want coffee, please get it. So my first day at work, I was wondering, how will I survive, right? I was there. It took me probably till about early afternoon when I realized I had not gone to the bathroom. And I said, how do people survive? Because he said, do not let the phone ring more than 3 times. And I was running to get coffee, answering the phone. And of course, I was trying to do all this research. But I think the point that is to be made is that my analyst class, as well as we moved ahead, we became associates, those of us who survived, is that there was a lot of work that was actually thrown at us. And many times it seemed that a lot of this work was impossible to do, at least in the short time that was given to us. And the only thing that we could do was actually work harder through the night sometimes. We pulled a few all-nighters, and those were memorable. The first one was certainly memorable. I remember it like it was yesterday. But it actually gets you through a lot of things, wherein you have to figure out how to be resourceful. You have to figure out how to get things done fast. You have to figure out when you can write things and when you are able to explain to your boss, hopefully in a logical manner, what needed to be done. So there were a lot of other bright kids around that program, and I should tell you that 1 or 2 who were very bright but did not want to work as hard as the rest obviously got cut from the program. And I think it's a great example perhaps of the Darwinian type of thing. That may not be what people preach today, but I do think that it is very instructive in terms of laying foundations for why hard work is an important part of developing one's career. And of course, when I was a student, same thing. I don't think I was the brightest kid in class. I just was the one who did all the problem sets and tried to read all the items there. So, okay, I guess we have a few photos here. The picture of somebody shoveling after the boss is, I guess, what the middle picture is about, right? So the cleanup crew, so to speak. But yeah, I guess these days I don't spend my days doing all-nighters anymore. I have young analysts or young associates to do it for me. So it's the next lesson of hopefully teaching the following generation. Tip number 2, be prepared. For those of you who know Miguel de Cervantes, I don't know if anyone, if that rings a bell. If you read Don Quixote as a student in school, or saw, what is it, the musical Man of La Mancha, he's the guy who wrote Don Quixote. And I remember reading a while back that he was actually a Marine in the, I guess, the Spanish Navy. So his words about to be prepared is half the victory really resonates. And I think I take this really from the Boy Scout training. For those of you who were in the scouting arena, Lord Baden-Powell actually made the motto, Boy Scouts, to be prepared, right? And this is something that we tend to learn in school, even as students. You know, you prepare for an exam, you study first before you take the exam. If you're an athlete, you need to put a program of preparation before you run the marathon, and so on and so forth. But it also applies to a lot of everyday tasks. And something that I find in the working world, which people may or may not take perhaps as seriously, is that coming to meetings prepared, to me, is a very important thing. And I think that it may sound very simple, it might sound corny, but I've also been to meetings where half the guys I've met with have no clue what the meeting is about and basically ending up wasting everybody else's time. So I think being prepared is a very important thing of our day-to-day lives, and it can also, by the way, mean something as simple as making sure you know what your calendar is for the day. Again, it sounds very simple, but I think it's very important to one's daily operations. This is one of my favorites. Common sense tip number 3. Exercise, exercise, exercise. Now, of course, we have Homer Simpson saying this, but or running there. And Mahatma Gandhi backs me up on this one. Health is wealth. We've heard that many times before. I think there's a huge amount of literature that's already been, I guess, out there from the medical profession, talking about the medical effects of exercise. And I guess personally, it really has been a lifestyle choice. Since I was a kid, I was always exercising. I remember my father telling me that you need to learn a sport for life and maybe a musical instrument. So I probably took one more to heart than the other. And what I do find out these days is that if I don't work out, I actually, in the morning, which is when I usually exercise, I feel funny throughout the rest of the day, and I don't think I can do what I do. So here we have a few photos. I did grow up, by the way, playing age group tennis. That was actually my sport. I was a little bit competitive at one point in time, wherein I was in the high school and the university varsity team. I've shifted mainly now to running and hit the gym about 2 to 3 times a week with a fitness coach. So the idea here really is it also helps, I think, in terms of goal setting. I'll talk about that later on. On the far right, you actually see those are my 3 kids who are also athletes in their own respective fields. But they're wearing a Team Sicat shirt. Tip number 4, talk to people. Okay. I guess it's partly for socialization, although it's really not just plainly talking for the sake of it. And we couldn't find a quote, but we did find Robert De Niro, whom I think most of you know. He's an actor, and of course he's talking about why he needs to scour a wide range of people to talk to. In his case, for his profession, trying to figure out roles. But in our profession, and I think it's quite important that one realizes that there's a wide range of views out there, and that we probably hold a particular perspective to any specific item. And by talking to people, hopefully you get the other diverse opinions that are out there, number one. You also hopefully get a feel for what the discussion is on the ground. Many times a lot of policymakers, quite correctly, and Dr. Bernie might agree with me here, when academics think of certain things at a higher plane, it all sounds well and good in theory, but actually without checking with what's on the ground, sometimes it may not actually work. And it's very important to have that particular feedback loop in terms of talking to a wide range of people. I think it also helps establish one's own views and hopefully also give one a sense of maybe certain hints in terms of what I myself need to read up on. So clearly in some discussions it becomes obvious that I don't know about a particular item, and that's actually a great clue for saying I need to focus on that particular theme. Okay, we have a few photos of me talking to a wide range of people. On the lower left-hand side, that's the former ambassador of the UK, Stephen Lilly. Obviously, he's stressing a point. We're probably talking about geopolitics and diplomacy. On the upper left-hand side, that's a number of my colleagues from the New York Stock Exchange. That's actually on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. And I guess in the middle there, I look delighted being with the pop star, what's her name, Ann Curtis. So, although I don't know what we actually talked about. Maybe I was just so happy to be there. I'm sure I asked her something, but must be in the entertainment section though. On the right-hand side, okay, that photo's about a week and a half old. For those of you who don't know him, he's actually that big guy, Hugh Jackman, who played Wolverine, X-Men, big actor. And I came up to him, we were in the lounge, we were seated about 7 feet apart. I said, I know this guy. And it dawned on me that he was the actor, so I just walked up to him. I actually wanted to ask him about his exercise routine, which, by the way, I did. I shook his hand, congratulated him for for what he was doing, and I asked him, how do you do it? And you know, he was nice enough to actually give me a few hints about what his workout program was. So I know it doesn't show yet. 6 months from now, you can take a look. Maybe let's see whether Hugh Jackman's advice works. And I guess finally, oh, there we go. It's clear I do talk to Richard. He's right there beaming, so congratulations, Richard. Okay, common sense tip number 5. Read a lot. I guess reading and learning, and JFK has this nice quote saying that they're indispensable to one another. And reading a lot, in one sense, came as part of, I guess, growing up, just reading, being curious about many things, but clearly that was also part of, I guess, schoolwork, and my parents are trying to encourage me to think about a wide range of topics. And today, you know, I must say that I always have a reading list. Usually it's one book, and then I'm always reading various articles. I think the access via the web, where you have a lot of online articles available, in fact, has increased my own personal reading list. I can never get to where I want to be in terms of both professional and, I would say, relaxing reading. Okay, so the team found what I was reading. They were asking me this question the other day. What are you reading right now? I just started reading the biography of Jamie Dimon, who is the CEO of JP Morgan Chase. He was actually my boss previously. He was a president of Solomon Smith Barney. So I had the occasion of, again, being under him and talking to him. Very interesting man, and I'll see whether the biography actually matches up to what how I know him. I read a lot of the, let's call it the business publications, just to keep up. Bloomberg, also online, The Economist, although that wasn't this week's Economist. I think this week's Economist had to do with President Assad. National Geographic, I read an article last night, very interesting thing about sugar. Not so much about the health issues, although it did talk about it, but actually the history of sugar as a commodity. And I learned something about how it developed from, a main commodity in New Guinea, exported through Africa and then through Asia before it went to the U.S. and essentially became the foundation for, interestingly enough, the slave trade. And finally, the novel I'm reading right now, nonfiction, is I've gone back to roots. I'm in the middle of this book called Noli Me Tangere, which is actually written by the Philippine national hero, Dr. Jose Rizal. I do remember trying to read the Spanish version about 4 or 5 years ago, but I was having a very hard time looking at the Spanish-English dictionary that finally, I guess, 3 years later, I said, I'll just read the English version, and it's very revealing. What do I learn? I'm in the middle of this book right now, and in fact, I'm at the chapter where they're talking about the excesses of fiestas, which is the town party for itself. And what I'm finding out is that, it's a good reminder for those of you who want to read this book, that a lot of maybe the social ills that have beset the Philippines are probably still, or you probably have some vestiges of it still today. And so I think Dr. Jose Rizal was very much a man who could see the issues in the big picture. Tip number 6, have fun with family and colleagues. And I think, yes, Confucius did say that choose a job that you like and you will never have to work a day in your life. Now, unfortunately, I don't think I've had the opportunity to really choose my own job. I've kind of ended up in the job somehow. But I think it's very important to actually do have fun with your friends and certainly the family. You probably heard the saying, happy wife, happy life. So probably best to keep the family in terms of the activity. So as a family, I should say that we're also very active. I do ask my kids to also pick up a sport. As I said, they're all athletes in their own particular sport. But we do a number of things as a family as well. Horsing around in front of the Ayala Triangle flag sometime last June, I think, down on the left side. We scuba dive a lot. That last one was in Bacolod, but about a month ago we were diving off Puerto Galera. So that's a fun activity. Yeah, we do some of these things like get into costume and kind of party with some friends and family. Of course, the other pictures with some PSE colleagues, and I think the lower picture is of us during one of these fun runs. So, somehow I'm still successful in getting my kids up for early morning runs now and then. But I think that when you have fun, somehow, maybe not all the time, but at least enough fun both in your family life as well as in the office, it does eliminate the grind in what we call the daily grind, right? And I think it also certainly makes it a lot easier to be around people, and when it makes it easier to be around people, I think people find it also easier to have me around to talk to. And I think that's quite an interesting scenario. Tip number 7, have a goal and persevere to achieve it. Again, JFK says that success comes from going from many failures without loss of enthusiasm. By the way, that photo, that is actually a photo of me trying to scale a 50-foot ice wall in Alaska. I'm proud to say I'm still here, so I didn't fall off. failure was not an option in that one. But it's interesting because, again, one of the, let's call it the physical goals that I had tried to put forth, and I brought my family along for this trip, was that I said, look, we've never been on a glacier before. Let's do some of the harder activities. And my daughter said, Dad, you must be crazy. I said, no, we'll get the right training. We'll get the correct guides. And so they helicoptered us over there, put us with the full equipment with crampons, ice picks, and said, here, we walked over to this ice wall. It's actually taller than, probably twice as tall as the height of this ballroom. And there we go. So, of course, I was a guinea pig. I did it first to make sure that the rest of Team Sicat could try and do it. And the next day, we ended up doing, not scuba diving, but I guess snorkeling with these thick wetsuits in ice-cold water of the Straits of Alaska. So that was quite an experience. I won't do that again, but it's something to say that, I guess we did it. So I think having a goal, if I just say so, is partly human nature, but I think that one needs to always set up something out there to ensure that you actually put up a plan as to what exactly you are going to be doing. And I think even the big tasks can be broken down and basically to show that you have lots of little successes throughout the day, or if not throughout the week. And I know that many engineers in the room, or those who are in the BPO industry, are actually very good at that, having a massive task and basically having the ability to break it down to various subtasks in order that you actually end up reaching that particular goal. And of course, a classic example is the usual exercise analogy where you want to run a marathon, you have to figure out from today, maybe in 8 months, what the training program will be. And basically you start training and you actually extend your own resistance and your own run times to be able to make that 42-kilometer distance. I guess the photos, I'm not sure how I interpret that. I guess I was dreaming of going to a good school, a good graduate school. That's Steinberg Dietrich Hall at the University of Pennsylvania. And maybe the end result is I can sit on a park bench, having gone to school, or at least walk on the New York Stock Exchange floor. I think those are I would call the 7 tips that I had for all of you today. And while they may not be perhaps as grandiose or major, I think that these 7 tips are some things which I myself kind of work with and I think live by. And maybe I'll end the talk with putting up something food for thought. You've all seen this thing, whether you've read the book of Steve Jobs, or heard about him. And I think that when he says the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. I hope you have something like that in mind, because clearly as we go about our daily, as I said, our daily grind or maybe our daily tasks, hopefully you're feeling that what you're doing is something that is contributing to a much larger thing, and perhaps you can not only change your workplace, maybe you contribute by, in your own little way, changing and improving the country. So with that, I thank you and have a good morning.
Very good. Please, Dale, ask Pressy Katigbak to come on up from PLDT Alpha Enterprise. I know Hans had to change his schedule around, which we appreciate. I know he's off on a flight somewhere, so glad he was able to stay with us, or to present for us. Another picture for, please, if we can come over here. And a gift from Asiana City. Very good. Thank you, my friend. So wish Hans well. He's off to sell Philippines, I think, again, or some more. Okay, take care.